Let me just say, this edition is gorgeous. How's it going, friends? With the holiday season right around the corner, I wanted to do a video comparing my cheapest Lord of the Rings set with my most expensive. You can see them right here. I got these 3 secondhand, and this really nice $70 edition of Lord of the Rings was sent to me kindly by Mariner Books. They're not sponsoring this video, but wanted to give them a shout out for sending me such a nice copy. In this video, we'll look at all the features of all of these books. I'll give you a pros and cons list for each of these sets and let you know who I think will enjoy each edition. Now, this is just the cheapest and most expensive version that I have. If you want to see my entire Tolkien collection, click the link right above and it'll take you to the video where I do that. If you stick around till the end of the video, I'll show you a copy of the Silmarillion that I just got that didn't make it into that previous video. Okay, to the books. Let's start out with my retro paperback Lord of the Rings set. So my personal favorite thing about this set is the cover design. That's a hot take. I don't think that this is everyone's favorite, but it's my personal favorite, and that's just me. Now, I did get these secondhand, all from a variety of secondhand stores. The first one I got for about $10. This one is in pretty medium condition. It's got some cracks in the spine and its corners are a little bit worn, but to me this is in fairly decent condition and I'm happy with this. I was able to find this edition of The Two Towers at one of my local secondhand shops. The condition of this one I am super happy with. The spine isn't cracked, the corners aren't bent except for maybe from me when I read it, and all of the pages are intact. This is an exceptional condition for a book that only cost me $3. And finally, The Return of the King. I found this at a different secondhand store here in Syracuse, and it's in slightly better condition than my copy of The Fellowship, but not quite as good as this this awesome Two Towers here. This one cost me $4, so again, pretty good deal and in even better condition than The Fellowship, which cost me more. So if I looked harder, I could have found The Fellowship for a better price and better condition, but it is what it is. In total, these cost me $17. Now, these books feature a few maps. In The Return of the King, it features a full map of the west of Middle Earth at the end of the Third Age, as well as a map of the region that the Shire is in, a view that shows Mirkwood, the Iron Hills, and the Sea of Rune, as well as this last map which shows a piece of Middle Earth that has a little bit of Rohan, a little bit of Gondor, and Isengard on it. I'm not totally sure what the purpose of this one is. And finally, map number 4 shows Mordor in more detail. The Fellowship has, in my opinion, some better maps. We have all of Middle Earth with a zoom in on the Shire. We have Gondor and Mordor and everything in between in much more detail, as well as Numenor, which I think is a great inclusion. In The Two Towers, it's weird that these all have different maps. I will say that. The same maps as The Fellowship of the Ring. I'm not sure why they switched it up in Return of the King. I'm sure that these specific areas that they have in the third book are more specifically pertinent to what happens in this book. So each of these books starts the page count from 1, which, if you're not familiar with Lord of the Rings editions, that isn't always a given. There are some editions that pick up where the last one left off. So I think Fellowship of the Ring in one edition ends on page 511, and then The Two Towers picks up on page 512. That's largely due to the history of these books and the way that they were written versus the way that they were published. They were written as one book, then split into 3 and published separately. So some editions will keep the page count running all the way through, and some editions like these will start the page count over. In case you have a preference, that's what these editions have. Now, these have the small mass market paperback size, which for me is my absolute favorite format to read books in. I don't know why, but larger books just aren't as easy for me to read. I like having the pages kind of have tighter packed words and smaller area to cover. I feel like I read faster when the pages are this size. That's just me. So that's pretty much all of the features of the mass market paperbacks from the 80s. If you have more questions about them, let me know in the comments below and I'll be happy to address specific information. Now let's move over to the more recent special edition of Lord of the Rings that is all bound up in one book. Let me just say, this edition is gorgeous. I definitely haven't owned a book this nice until I got this one. On the cover, you'll see that it has the Lord of the Rings written in red, as well as J.R.R. Tolkien's signature in a shiny gold text, as well as the Dwarvish and Elvish script along the top and bottom. There's a cutout in the dust jacket that reveals the Eye of Sauron in the middle and this ring. Now, removing the dust jacket, spine has the same text as the dust jacket does. It's in shiny material instead. And the Eye of Sauron on the front, where it's kind of small, but that's where it pokes through the dust jacket. You'll notice that on the edge, it has sprayed red edges and Elvish script on the outside here, which I think looks so nice. Some people actually, when they display these on their shelves, face the text outwards like this, which I think is a cool choice. Kind of cool. You have some options of how to display it. Tucked into the front cover of the book is this removable, folded up map of Middle-earth. This is probably the single most detailed map of Middle-earth that I've ever seen. It has all of the major locations labeled. The back cover, tucked inside, is, guess what? Another map. This map shows the south with Rohan, Gondor, and Mordor in much more detail and some topographical lines to show the mountain ranges. I think that while I'm reading, this is the area that I need to look at the map most for. I really want to get these framed. I had frames, but my hardware wasn't strong enough to hold them up, so they literally fell off the wall. So I got to find a better solution for that. But these are very, very nice maps and a really good touch to this special edition. All right, now let's look inside. So the paper is fairly thin, which both feels nice and also makes me a little bit worried as I turn the page that I might damage it. It does strike me as a bit more delicate than the paperbacks. The paperbacks, I feel like I can just throw around and beat the crap out of, and nothing will ever destroy them. This one, I am a bit more careful with while I read. I feel like mostly because I understand the monetary value of it, and I want to keep it looking really nice. So that's one thing to consider. If you have that urge like me, you might be more hesitant before bringing this outside of the house. The page numbers and headings are in red, and the main text is in black, which I think looks really nice and premium. It feels like there's thought put into the experience of this. Additionally, there are illustrations throughout, as well as more maps. There's a zoomed in map of a part of the Shire. There are the covers of the original dust jackets of Lord of the Rings. There are illustrations that Tolkien made. It's really, really cool to be able to see this alongside the text. I won't flip through the whole thing, but I'll show a few of the illustrations here so you can get a sense of what is included in this edition. This edition clocks in at $75, so it is significantly more expensive, but if you're interested in having a really nice copy, this is quite a good one to have. So now let's get into the pros and cons. So the pros of getting the really nice $75 edition is that it is really beautifully done. I can tell there's a lot of thought put into the presentation of both the text and the additional materials, and you end up with two really nice maps as well that, like me, you can try to frame. That wasn't the map's fault, that was my fault. It looks fantastic on a shelf, and this is really the premium experience, if that's what you're looking for. Now, premium experience is a very subjective thing. I personally much prefer the experience of reading the paperbacks. We'll get into that in a minute. This has the illustrations. These do not. The $75 edition, you'll be able to see the way that Tolkien intended things to look in his world, or at least the best representations of them that he was able to draw, as well as additional maps and the original book covers scattered throughout this whenever they become relevant. A third pro for the special edition is that it is a bind up. You end up with one book rather than three, which means that horizontally, it's probably going to take up less space on your shelf than some of the other editions that are out there. Cons are that you might not be willing to carry this with you and actually read it. I personally do not plan on reading The Lord of the Rings for the first time in this edition. I think that since there are cheaper options out there, I'm more likely to read those because I don't have to worry about messing them up. With the monetary value assigned to a book of this beauty, I don't feel like I want to stick this in my backpack ever. The second con, kind of obvious, is the price. This is a hefty sum to pay for one book. Technically, 3 books, but however you view it, it's a lot of money. And the third con is that this is more delicate. If you are willing to bring this out and stick it in your backpack and read it wherever you go, that's awesome. Just know that hardcovers tend to break easier than paperbacks when they are sort of used heavily. Hardbacks have a better shelf life while they're sitting on a shelf, and they last super long that way, but this isn't the type of book that lasts a long time and by standing up to heavy wear. These, on the other hand, are 40 to 50 years old each, and they're all in very readable condition because of that. If I were to treat this book the same as I treat these books, I don't think that would be the case. With this one, I think this would be trashed a lot sooner. Now for the paperbacks. The pros of the paperbacks, like I mentioned, is that they are very durable and you don't have to worry about messing them up. Personally, I tried very hard not to mess this one up. See, look at that. These are going to be the daily driver books. These are going to be the ones you stick in your coat pocket. These are going to be the ones that you stick in your bag and read on the bus. These are very much the everyday kind of Lord of the Rings reading experience that I personally prefer for the actual reading of the book. Second is that they're cheap. They cost me $17 in total, and I love them. I think that they are really cool and retro, and I'm able to read The Lord of the Rings in comfort. And for the cons, you have to have 3 separate books, which means that you could lose one. It means that they're going to take up more space on your shelf, and it means that they're technically not as true to Tolkien's vision. Now, I don't necessarily think that that's a huge con, but if that's something that you care about, if you want to have it in a way that Tolkien definitely intended, then the one book is the way to go. I honestly don't think it matters. They are all one book. They are all 3 books. It's all the same. The next con is that they're hard to find. Between getting the first one and getting the third one, it took me probably about 5 months to track them all down. So if you're on a time crunch, this particular set and getting them secondhand won't be the way to go. You'll have to pursue a more expensive option to get them quick. If you do have time though, and you're not in a rush, then great. This is a perfect way to do it, and it's the way I did it, and I'm happy with that. The third con is that the maps aren't as good. I think they're fine. They sort of serve the purpose while I'm reading, but they're not nearly as good as these special edition maps that come with this version. That said, you can always look stuff up online and zoom in on a map from Google Images or something, and you're not going to have to rely on just these maps. And the last con is that they probably will be damaged when you get them. If you take the route that I did and get them secondhand for super cheap, they're going to have cracked spines, they're going to have bent corners, they might have annotations inside. That won't be something that you're able to control. If you really want pristine editions of your books, then this probably won't be the way to go. Again, if you're interested in seeing the other Lord of the Rings editions that I have that are between this price range, go check that out, because those will be great options as well. In conclusion, I think that the paperbacks are better value for your money, and will be a better reading experience for everyday use. You should get these if you are not concerned about how it looks, if you're just trying to read the story, and if it's your first time reading The Lord of the Rings, you don't want to be dropping $75 on a special edition of a book you don't know if you'll like or not. The special edition is going to be good for people who are already fans, people who want it to look really good on their shelves, and people who want detailed maps and illustrations to go along with it. If you're someone who creates content about books on the internet like me, then the special edition is a really good thing to have, especially for videos where I'm showing The Lord of the Rings. I want to present a really nice copy for that. So I hope this video gave you a little more information about the pros and cons of getting the paperbacks versus the special edition of Lord of the Rings. And as I promised, I'll show you my new Silmarillion copy that I got secondhand. I think it's really cool. It's also a retro edition. Here it is. It's got the lime green Silmarillion title with this cool illustration on it, which I don't know what it's depicting because I have not yet read this. It's also got some maps inside. It smells nice. Mine's missing a corner. Kind of annoying, but you know, it's part of the charm of getting used books. I like this a lot better than the edition that I showed in the other video. I think this looks a lot neater and a lot cooler, in my personal opinion. Really happy with this find. It only cost me $3. Yeah, there's the other edition. But thank you so much for watching. If you're new here, I'm Sam Cody, and I do lots of videos about books. So if you're interested, please consider subscribing. Thanks for watching, and until next time, peace.